I said in my last video essay that Bonney deserved her own video, and by God did I mean it. And yes, I understand the irony of a crazy pink-haired Aussie lady talking about Bonney, because... this is just a scary pink-haired Aussie girl talking about another scary pink-haired Aussie girl. And yes, Bonney is scary. She could beat that gorilla all by herself. In fact, she could beat 100 gorillas all by herself. The average man's strength is absolutely nothing compared to the pure, unfiltered rage of a crazy, scary little Aussie girl. Trust me. I killed a few of my own. Jokes aside, this video is about Bonney, and before we get into her, let me just clarify something. I don't like children. And I don't really mean real-life children because they just exist, even though they tend to, for some reason, have the habit of running directly under my legs every time I go out anywhere to nearly trip me and kill me, which is great. But what am I supposed to do? I can't exactly punt a kid. No, when I talk about not liking children, I mean in fictional media. Specifically in media where the protagonist or the main characters are either teens or adults, because I don't think children's media where kids are the protagonists really count for this. I have an issue with them because, if you haven't realized, a lot of children are not written to be people. They are written to be children, meaning they don't really have personalities, they don't really have any character. Their character is just child. Because as we all know, children only develop personalities and identities when they're teenagers. Before then, they're just mini-me's you can dress up like dolls without any real disagreements or arguments. Child characters can also exist to just be a plot device. Once again, no real personality needed. They're just a kid that propels the plot forward. As much as I love the movie, Kubrick's The Shining did exactly this. That kid had no personality apart from being a baby. He just went where the plot demanded him to go. Not pulled by character, but by story. Horror does this a lot actually. Bird Box did the same thing. The characters of the children were literally just called boy and girl. And yes, I understand what the movie was trying to do, but is that not a testament to how f***ing little of a personality those damn kids had? No. I'm saying all of this because when I first saw child characters in One Piece, I went, oh, great. A fictional child who will just exist as a fictional child. Yet to my pleasant surprise, even the most side characters did not receive this treatment. Isa, in Skypiea, was a little warrior who just wanted to liberate her tribe in the same way Wiper was doing. She's similar to young Nami in braving the battlefield and attempting to free the people she loves. And her motivation is incredibly clear, all while having a stubborn, willful, strong personality that aids Luffy through Skypiea. She was also born with mantra, which is Hucky, which is actually crazy. She can hear everyone's voices in the same way Enel and Luffy can. So, power scalers, where is she on your lists? Once again, do not mess with an enraged little girl. She will kill you. But Isa's will and her want to be helpful to her tribe is what brings her into the story. Something understandable because Wiper feels the same way, and has felt the same way ever since he was a child. It's the passing of wills and all the good stuff that One Piece embodies. What I'm saying is, Isa was a welcomed joy. I no longer feared the cute little kid trope that tends to exist in a lot of writing. But I'm gonna sound like a hypocrite here because Chimney is actually one of my favorite characters. And honestly, she fits the cute little kid trope the most out of any of Oda's child characters. I can't really tell what Chimney's motivation is. She kind of just exists, and her personality is in her design. But in my head, Oda's earned it because I know he can actually write children as people. Chimney was just exceptionally funny because why in the world was there a little girl on an active war zone painting arrows on walls to indicate where Luffy needs to go to beat someone up? All this to say, there is a trope of child character that I fear in media, and One Piece doesn't tend to fall into it. I will still get a character when a child is introduced within the One Piece manga, and the recent and best child character Oda has introduced in this regard is Bonney. This video will get into Bonnie's story, how that has created her character, and how and why she is so near and dear to my heart. But before we do that, it's sponsor time. Poor little Bonney was on the run from the world government for 2 years of her life, and she would have been able to easily avoid them with a NordVPN. NordVPN is the fastest and most reliable VPN out there. With just one click, I can connect to servers in over 118 countries and keep my online activity totally private. Whether I'm working from a cafe, watching shows not available in my country, or just trying to avoid creepy ad tracking losers, NordVPN's got me covered. Plus, if you're ever on public Wi-Fi, NordVPN keeps your data encrypted so hackers can't see you Googling Zoro's big, beautiful brain. And the best part? One account works on up to 10 devices, so your phone, laptop, and tablet are all protected. If you care about privacy, speed, and security, get NordVPN today. Plus, with a 30-day money-back guarantee, you can try NordVPN risk-free. Head over to NordVPN and be sure to use my code to get an exclusive deal today, found both in the description and the pinned comments. Or you can type in nordvpn.com/melontea, and that's melontea with an E. A VPN is so worth it, so grab that deal now. And thank you so much NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Alright. Sorry for the long intro, everyone. I'm actually not sorry, I like diving into further context before getting into the base of anything. Odin, lend me your hucky, this is base Bonney we're dealing with. But I think it's important to acknowledge an author where the acknowledgement is due. Because when it comes to Bonney, I have a lot of love for her. And not only do I have a lot of love for her, the whole fandom has a lot of love for her too. You'd be hard pressed to find a One Piece fan who doesn't like Bonney. And it's not just out of pity for a little girl. From the get-go, Bonney was a dynamite character who, along with Luffy and Zoro, existed as one of the worst generation members. Bonney, this girl, who we, at the time, thought was an adult, only to discover she is 12 years old, technically 10 at the time of introduction. She is a worst generation member. I need us to really think about it, because a 10-year-old girl standing toe-to-toe with characters like Luffy and Zoro is actually the best thing Oda has ever done. Not to mention Bonney saves Zoro against the Celestial Dragons and then calls him stupid. Imagine being called stupid as a grown-ass adult by a 10-year-old. Oh my God, I just end it right there. She's even acknowledged somewhat by Blackbeard, who says the new world is only for the strong, but then he also calls her a young girl, then tells Bonney if she'll be his woman, he'll spare her. Blackbeard? What? This man right here, officer. In all genuine sincerity, I am just hoping that when he calls her a young girl, he meant because she shifted herself to resemble a woman in her early 20s, which would be considered a young girl, I guess. I'm hoping, guys. I'm hoping. Oh my God, stay away from her. Get a job! Blackbeard is a villain for a reason, I suppose. But of course, strength isn't everything. What's the point of having a big, strong character if they don't have a personality? And Bonnie's character is just rambunctious. We see it directly through her introduction page when she's sitting on a table and inhaling food as she demands for more. There is absolutely no restraint in Bonnie's being. She doesn't seem to care to limit herself with anything, not even food. And many of us noticed she had a bit of a resemblance to Luffy in this way. She's like the angrier, pinker version of Luffy, which is fantastic for what happens down the road, because her Luffy similarities actually hold a lot of importance for when we get into Bonnie's arc. Egghead. Before Egghead, Bonnie wanted to sneak into the Reverie, and we had no idea why. She had lost her whole crew at this point, and through infiltrating the Holy Lands, she formed a small connection with Sabo. From here, Bonnie's connection with the revolutionaries begins, and it just keeps stacking. Because as Egghead starts, Bonnie basically straight up says that Kuma is her father. Oda dropped this nearly immediately, which honestly shocked me, but it's because he had no intention of that being the plot twist of the arc. In fact, Egghead had multiple plot twists to it, the first one being Bonnie's true age, and the second one being Bonnie's origin. And these are only the plot twists related to Bonnie. Egghead was just a twisty-turny arc that gave me whiplash from how much I was going, huh? Trust One Piece to do that. Now, with Bonnie being as angry and violent as she is, I assumed this is just something she is because she's a pirate. And a girl pirates, and they're all just angry, emotional swines, aren't they? If you're a man, you're not allowed to laugh at that. Alas, it's weird I think these things when I've literally made videos about how Oda writes character personalities in correlation with their origins. I shot myself in the foot by thinking this arc would be a lot more centered around Kuma and his past than it would be around Bonnie's, when they are clearly intertwined. It's even stupider of me to have thought that because Wano, the arc directly before Egghead, had two little girls with a story mostly centered around them. Otoko had a whole heartbreaking scene with her father. 2 scenes, in fact, while Otama had a whole ass connection to Ace. Those 2 were like Oda's warm-ups before getting into the most heartbreaking little girl backstory of all with Bonnie. He looked at Otoko and Otama and said, yeah, that was sad. But check this out. However, like I said, we don't just like Bonnie because we pity her. The very start of Egghead made sure to show us a brighter side. As Bonnie got along with Luffy, Chopper, and Jinbe, she especially fit in well with Luffy and Chopper, her similarities to Luffy making it so these 2 just vibe. I also do enjoy that Luffy seems to be a little bit scared of Bonnie. He got her name wrong once and then Bonnie yelled at him to straighten him up and then he never got her name wrong again. What do I keep saying? A crazy little girl is the most terrifying thing ever. Even Luffy is smart enough to know that. The whole point of this is Bonnie didn't just come in with a blank slate. She takes up a lot of space, loudly and unapologetically. So by the time introductions are out of the way, and by the time we get an understanding of her personality, this makes her sudden, more vulnerable moment shocking. As Luffy and the crew explore Egghead, finding clothes to wear and food to eat, a peacekeeper suddenly appears. This peacekeeper is a pacifista, the same one the Marine/world government seem to use, and it moves to arrest Luffy, Bonnie, and Co. Yet, as Luffy attempts to fight the machine, Bonnie stops him and breaks down in tears as she yells, "Please don't hurt my daddy." Side note, the panel for this scene is just gorgeous, from Bonnie's expression to the shading to the image of Kuma and Bonnie together during a happier time. I would honestly say this is one of Oda's best. In my opinion, the start of this arc aside, when Bonnie appears in her true child form, this is the first time we truly see Bonnie's childlike side. A girl crying for her father, calling him daddy is something children tend to do. Another indication of Bonney being young was her anger towards Vegapunk. It was harsh and stubborn and a lot more violent than we usually see from someone who isn't an antagonist in One Piece. Bonney just wanted him dead. She didn't care about what he had to say or their past together, she just wanted to kill him. There's also something to be said about how Law wanted to kill Doflamingo and how that rage he had was related to his childhood and his violent outbursts were even something Doffy made fun of for being childish. If we pay close attention, One Piece seems to see certain bloodthirsty violent acts as something horribly immature, hence why Shanks teaches Luffy you shouldn't just be killing or fighting people, but hey, that's a conversation for another time. Bonney's behavior towards Vegapunk is honestly somewhat deserved due to what she knows, but we know immediately moving to violence and killing isn't the mature thing to do. Unless you have a damn good reason for it. Remember kids, One Piece teaches us to kill for a reason. At the time, Bonney's true age was a mystery, and we could only guess from scenes like this whether or not she was actually a child. Yet Bonney's age being hidden was for an incredible story purpose, one I feel I can relate to, and the reason for why I connect in this weird, emotional way to Bonney. I haven't been able to get Bonney off my mind for this reason, her themes being ones that really choke me up. But for us to understand that, we need to get into her backstory. Get out the tissues, babe. We're all going to cry. Bonney's father is Kuma. We know it, we believe it, but he's not her blood father. I think this was supposed to be a plot twist, but with Oda's patterns of writing, I personally was not surprised. Author shocked the audience by doing the thing he's done 10 times before, one more time. This is not a diss, by the way. I actually really enjoy that Oda sticks to his guns. You will rip found family from this man's cold, dead hands. Kuma will be getting his own video, so I'll be skipping over the first parts and get right to Bonney's birth. Due to tragic events, Ginny, Bonney's mother, was kidnapped and was taken as a slave by the Celestial Dragons. When Bonney was found, it was in her dying mother's arms, and we discover Bonney's blood father is of Celestial Dragon blood. There's theories all around who the Celestial Dragon is, but I believe that to be irrelevant. Who Bonney's blood father isn't the point here. It's simply the fact they were just a Celestial Dragon, especially regarding how the Celestial Elders treat her and what it means within the Celestial Dragon system. Kuma decided to leave the Revolutionary Army to raise Bonney back in the Sorbet Kingdom. As Bonney grew, she was discovered to have an illness. This illness grew gems on Bonney's skin if she ever made contact with natural light. And although Kuma tried to give her the best childhood he could, Bonney was bullied by the other children while frustrated at being stuck in a church all her life. Also, the panel of her flipping the other kids off is just awesome. I really love her. Multiple doctors visited Bonney in an attempt to heal her over this time, none of them recognizing what the disease she had was, until one doctor explained he'd seen it before, and revealed Bonney would die before her 10th birthday. As Kuma decided he had to find a cure for her, he had no choice but to leave Bonney behind, and this created a growing anger and depression within Bonney. This only got worse when Kuma, through Vegapunk, managed to find a cure, but he had to give up his own life to cure Bonney. For the first few months, he was together with Bonney on Egghead Island, until needing to abandon her back in Sorbet Kingdom again to uphold his end of the deal with Saturn, the Celestial Elder who told Kuma he will be turned into a killing machine as repayment for curing Bonney. Kuma promised Bonney that by her 10th birthday they could see the world together, so she needs to think about where she wants to go. In turn, this made Bonney's birthdays more and more significant the older she grew. Although Kuma wrote to Bonney as much as he could, his letters never reached her, and we get a terribly sad scene of a 9-year-old Bonney wondering why Kuma didn't keep his promise when telling her he'd write. And as she cries during her birthday, she says, I'm 9 now. From here, it's discovered Bonney has already been cured. Her caretaker realizes Bonney is being held hostage and helps Bonney escape with her own crew. Bonney sees the sunlight for the first time, marveling at it while walking to the sea, and stops her captor from stealing her back with a move called Nika-like future. There's a connection here with Bonney seeing the sun for the first time, and Bonney using a Nika-inspired move for the first time directly under the sun. I especially love this page because we see the expression of pure joy on her face as she uses this move, and being under the sun for the first time has quite literally restored her faith, both in her father and in Nika. The reason there's this connection with her father is because Kuma educated Bonney on Nika, so any Nika talk is also indirectly linked to Kuma due to how Kuma told Bonney he wanted to be like Nika. Also, the page of Bonney saying, "I'm outside, there's dirt, grass, sky, sun, look, I'm outside," is just so tear-jerking. This little girl has had such a cruel childhood with her illness that simply seeing the sun is unbelievable to her. Once escaping Sorbet Kingdom, she starts her journey to find Kuma, which then turns into a journey to find and kill Vegapunk when she found out what he'd done to her dad. There's also the addition of Bonney wanting to find Nika too, but we'll touch on that later. Bonney's childhood was spent being locked up, for one reason or another, and it seems clear to me that Bonney's anger comes from being a bit stir-crazy. She became defensive and violent not just due to how the other children ostracized her, but because she just couldn't understand her situation. As in, why her? Why can't she go outside? Why can't she see the world? Why has she been sentenced to a cage while her father tells her she must wait until she's older? She must wait for when she's cured. After all, I don't believe Kuma told Bonney she could die, because how could you possibly tell that to a child? I mean, Law thought he was going to die as a kid, and look how he turned out. Then Bonney had to be separated from her father. For some reason, she had been abandoned, and she was unable to do anything about it. Stuck in a cage, believed to be abandoned by the one person she truly loves. Too ill to even see the sun. How can that not turn a little girl bitter? Because even when she found her father, he was just a walking, mindless machine, and her rage from there turned on Vegapunk. Most of the time, Bonney just seems spiteful, so angry, and this also comes with the addition of her age. Here's where the plot twist of Bonney's age comes into play, and why I think it was done brilliantly. Bonney, over her life, had absolutely no power. She was told what to do all the time. She was told where to go all the time. And she was kept in her cage all the time. And who set all these rules around her? Who didn't allow her any real freedom? Adults. There was not a single child that ever played with Bonney or even talked to Bonney, so her entire life was just her being surrounded by adults. Kuma did his absolute best to raise her with all the love he could muster, and Kuma was most definitely the most loved person in her life, but he promised Bonney freedom with age. When you turn 10, you can travel the world. When you turn 20, you can go to Sky Island. When you turn 19, where would you want to go? A promise of the world was given to Bonney with age. Hence, a promise of liberation. So, as she uses her powers, as she uses her devil fruit to quite literally grow up, this gives her a sense of freedom. And I honestly think, due to how her life was totally dictated and surrounded by adults, she started to feel insecure about being a child. this is the exact same thing that happened to SANJI on the Baratier. I'm sorry I had to bring it up, and it will not be the last time. This idea is presented in the way both Bonney and others talk about children. Bonney keeps calling others childish as she tries to hold herself up with some maturity, and as she de-ages Vegapunk, he says, "You've turned me into a helpless child." Something similar is said again much later on when Bluegrass is turned into a child. As they say, it sucks to be so helpless when turned into a child. The helpless child that Bonney must believe herself to be. Hence why she never reverts back to her original age. She never exposes herself to be a child, and why she masks herself with makeup and jewelry to appear as an adult. Every single confrontation Bonney has, every single act of rage she unleashes is done when she's an adult. I do believe Bonney's powers are very much tied to her emotions, while also being tied to her imagination of her own believed image of what an adult is, and this is why she has so much power in her adult form. She believes adults are just powerful, and perhaps she believes that spite is connected to maturity because adults aren't happy. Her imagined future is kind of just an angry adult. Although the first time she used her power properly, she yelled Nika's name and did it with a smile. Once again, we will get back around to that. The reason I feel such a connection to Bonney here is because haven't we all had this feeling? Weren't we all once children who just wanted our childhoods to hurry up? Weren't we all helpless in our childhoods at some points when we felt weak, and many of us resented being as young as we were? If I were older, I could do this. If I were older, I could say this. If I were older, I could sit with the big kids at the big kids table. So when Bonney ages herself up and puts on makeup for some semblance of adulthood in an attempt to gain a sense of liberation, it makes my heart ache, because I want to see her be a child and enjoy her childhood. I think most of us do, but she's pretending to be something she's not because that's just how the world works. Imagine the danger she'd be in as a child pirate captain on the seas. Imagine how she'd be mocked among the worst generation for being a kid. Imagine the numerous battles she'd have to face with people thinking she's an easy target due to being a child. She wouldn't be taken seriously at all, so her putting on an adult mask is a form of protection on numerous levels. She sees freedom in adulthood, not in childhood. Until Egghead. Bonney's childhood form is not just her actual form, it's also her being vulnerable. A fantastic example of this is when she first beats Vegapunk's ass as an adult, just to discover what Kuma actually did for her. And when she sees Vegapunk again, she reverts back to her normal self, her child self, to hug him and apologize. When Bonney is in her natural state, this is when she feels safe. She will reveal her child self to those she trusts, and to those she knows will help her. And although not intentional on her behalf, her appearing to the Straw Hats the first time as a child at the start of Egghead is actually a fantastic nod to this fact. Which then brings me to Saturn, the Celestial Elder. There's something we need to get out of the way first, and this is how the Celestial Elders see Bonney. Due to being born of half Celestial Dragon blood, I've seen some talks that Bonney gets treated special or different because of it. This is not true. The Elders, as Saturn says, just see people as insects, Bonney included. Bonney is not a Celestial, she is not given any saint title. She is the child of a slave. This makes her no better than the common person, especially because, historically speaking in the real world, children of slaves got absolutely no privileges. The reason Saturn wants to kill Bonney is because she defied the world government. She defied him. She was treated as blackmail material to keep Kuma in in line. The Celestial Elders don't see Bonney as anything significant. They just see her as an insect. Bonney has gotten nothing from having celestial blood in her. All she's actually gotten is experimented on. And this is when we get to what Saturn has actually done to her. When Saturn appears, Bonney immediately jumps forward to strike him. Bonney is the first person in the story to attack a Celestial Elder, by the way, which is metal as f***. I also think this is a bit of a parallel to how Luffy was the first person, story-wise, to punch a Celestial Dragon, but I digress. As Bonney is grabbed by Saturn, her powers begin to fade. She questions why she's weaker, and her situation only becomes more horrifying as Saturn tells her the truth of her power and her life. He reveals he gave her that power as he experimented on her and her mother. The illness that Kuma set out to cure is the very same illness Saturn had given her. Bonney is crying at this news because the only reason Kuma gave himself up was due to her illness, and Saturn was the one to strike the deal. In this moment, as Bonney is told the truth, there's a realization that she had no control of her life all along. From her power, to her illness, to the curing of her illness, to her father becoming an emotionless cyborg, all of it was someone else dictating and using her like a lab rat. Saturn even explains Bonney's power only works if Bonney believes in certain futures. But due to Saturn overwhelming her and making her face reality, she's starting to lose faith in her future. Originally, she believed in Nika, to the point she could replicate him. Yet Saturn tells her that her current weak state is evidence that she's begun to think he isn't real. So, as Saturn continues to demoralize her, as he makes her feel insignificant for all he's done to her and how he's controlled her and her father, she completely loses faith in everything. She cries she can't do anything, that she's too afraid, and then says the saddest thing a child could ever possibly say: maybe it'll be easier if I just die. And how can we blame Bonney for thinking this, when she would believe herself the reason for the loss of Kuma's self? Yet, like Nika himself, Kuma appears to save her. And the absolute best part of this whole scene, to me, is Bonney reverting back to her original child self, as her father holds her in his arms, and Bonney can finally feel safe again. I'm not kidding when I say this scene made me think about how much I love my dad and how fortunate I am to have a dad that actually cares about me. Dad, I know you're watching this and I love you. We have one more thing to discuss about Bonney and what her whole arc is about, but before we do that, this video needs to pay the SANJI tax. It's my channel and I get to make everything about him. SANJI was really involved in the Egghead arc, and he was especially involved in protecting Bonney, and I do not believe it was just Oda throwing SANJI around for the hell of it, although he does do that. I will say it was a bit dirty when Bonney saw the thriller bark moment through Kuma's memories, and then she talks to Luffy and says, "Wow, Sanji's really cool, huh? A good fighter and a good cook?" Bonney, Zoro was there too! I don't know why Zoro didn't get a mention there. I suppose maybe she's already labeled him an idiot since the Sabaody incident, but I don't know. But let's think about Bonney's story. Mother dies of an illness and she did all she could to protect Bonney. Bonney's original blood father is absolute scum by default due to him being a celestial dragon. Kuma then adopts her as her real father and then sacrifices his body to save Bonney. And Bonney seems to believe she caused Kuma trouble. Now, who else can follow that story nearly beat for beat? Oh my god, I think that has to be SANJI. Blood father who's a scumbag, sick mother who died to protect him, found father who sacrificed a part of himself to save SANJI, and now SANJI will do absolutely anything in his power to help Zeph as he acknowledges Zeph as his real father. If anyone can relate to the love and rage Bonney feels throughout Egghead, it's SANJI. I should have known SANJI would be more involved in this story the second it was about loving relationships between a child and their father, because this has happened before. Back in Punk Hazard, when Kinemon said he was there to save his son, SANJI's heart immediately went out to him. A child and a loving father is SANJI's Achilles heel, because oh boy, has this man had horrible daddy issues, and oh boy, does SANJI know more than anyone how much it means when you actually find a loving father in this world. There's even a scene showing SANJI somewhat understands Bonney as she freezes up when a pacifista moves to kill her, and SANJI jumps forward to save her. When he saves her, he says, "Come on, Bonney, don't start spacing out now. I heard about how Kuma's your old man, but you've gotta be smarter than this." It's no coincidence that after SANJI hears of Kuma being Bonney's dad, he starts blocking light beams and kicking through celestial elders. This is shit that's close to SANJI's heart, and it's why this big brother feeling bond was created between these two characters. And I'm not making that up, because SANJI is like one of the only characters that Bonney actually calls by name throughout Egghead. This is just a little girl who really loves her dad and wants to save him, and SANJI relates to that. And if you disagree with me, you can go argue with Oda. Send him a strongly worded letter about how SANJI needs to stop being involved in the middle of everything. I don't know, I'm sure that'll go down really well for you. He won't even look at the fucking letter, let's be honest. Put something about dicks in it, maybe he'll actually give it a chance. Okay, I'm sorry, I just really needed to get the SANJI rot out of my system. I just think the whole dynamic with him and Bonney is really cute. But we can now get to the final thing that sums up Bonney and her whole arc, and that final thing is faith. If you hadn't noticed, Bonney was brought up in a church. The one thing she knew and the one thing she'd see every day was a church. As we know, a church is where you pray, where you believe, and where you instill a sense of faith. Kuma's own faith was passed on to Bonney, his faith being in Nika. Due to her father telling stories of Nika, Bonney was able to imagine this god up quite vividly. Hence why she has Nika-like powers and a Nika-like future, because she can be Nika too, just so long as she believes in it. Bonney's powers completely rely on faith, not just faith in Nika or in any god's point blank, but faith in her own self and future. Yet, from when she first escaped the church and used a Nika-like power for the first time, to when we see her in Egghead, it seems she's become more cynical. Why? Well, because as Saturn said, she has been hit with reality. The reality of people dying. The reality of not being strong enough. The reality of the world. The church was granting her faith in a future she could believe in, and outside the church was starting to make that faith unstable. Very clever, Oda, linking Bonney to a church like that. But this is why, when Bonney leaves the church for the first time and she looks up at the sun in awe, it's entirely symbolic of her faith. Directly after this moment, she uses her Nika-like future move for the first time, and she is clearly her strongest with not only her faith fully intact, but her happiness that has come along with her freedom. Because for Bonney, to be free is the ability to imagine her future in any way she wants. Which brings us to Luffy. Oda's writing between Bonney and Luffy is some of his most touching and some of his most heartwarming. After Kuma has appeared and is being escorted to safety by the Straw Hats, and after Luffy turns into Gear 5, Bonney looks up and realizes just who Luffy looks like. She begins to cry, Luffy asking her why she's crying, and Bonney yells, "Of course I'm crying, idiot! I've been looking for you." And Luffy says, "But we've been together this whole time." Of course, this can be taken literally, but there is absolutely a double meaning here. From Kuma teaching Bonney of Nika, to Kuma's own want to embody Nika being passed down to Bonney seeing the sun, to Bonney having a Nika-like future power, relying on her faith in Nika. This all combines to give Luffy's words so much meaning. I've been with you the whole time. Bonney's faith may have faded, reality may have been grim, but what Nika represents and what he is has been with her the whole time. Joy, laughter, and liberation. From Guinea to Kuma to Luffy, to the church people that protected her, to Vegapunk aiding her. This has been with Bonney the whole time, in different forms and from different people, but it's always been there. And so, when Bonney is encouraged by Luffy to beat up the elders, and when she remembers Luffy saying Gear 5 is how he looks when he's the most free, she explodes in her own Gear 5 form. Her faith has been restored, her hope of liberation given back to her, and this can only work because Bonney is a child. I've said in a previous video, my childish dreams video, that children have the ability to be the most free because they have the privilege to dream. Reality can be a hard thing to face. It's something that can stop many people's dreams point blank. But children haven't hit that wall yet. You ask a kid what they want to be and they say an astronaut, a secret agent. Hell, some of them say they want to be a dinosaur. Life is a series of open doors for them. Their future is totally undetermined and full of possibilities, so long as they have faith in their own future to be whatever they want to be. So, when Bonney realizes her future is what she makes it, she embodies pure, joyous freedom. And the moments when she truly embraces her liberation, when she refuses to be limited in her life, is when she remembers the people who protected her, loved her, and pushed her into a future she's always dreamed of. The people that granted her a faith she can hold on to make her stronger. Bonney faces Saturn and yells, "You'll pay for what you did to my daddy. And what you did to my mummy. You people aren't gods, but gods do exist, and so do heroes. I wish we could have lived together as a family. There were times I wanted to die if I had to be alone. But I won't, because they wanted me to be alive." And after this incredible speech, she decks Saturn in the face with a Liberation Nika punch. She is alive because the people she loves want her to be alive. She is free because of the love she's given, and her faith now not only rests in Nika, it rests in the love of those around her. With this realization, Bonney is at her strongest, and the cruel realities of the world can no longer stop her, because there's one reality she can always trust, and that's the reality of her father and her mother forever loving her. Bonney's story embodies so much. I genuinely don't know how Oda managed to fit so much into this crazy little pink-haired girl, but he did it beautifully. Even after Egghead, her healing has clearly started, as we only see her embody her true child self around the Straw Hats, Vegapunk, and with her father finally together with her again. She no longer feels weak or alone. She's now at the most liberating and joyful time of her life. And Dear God, that's all I ever wanted to see for this girl. I know this video is titled Bonney and Youth because the freedom of childhood truly is what Bonney mainly embodies. But the faith of love and being loved is truly a huge part of her too. I have no idea where Bonney is going to go from here. I just pray she's able to have the happy ending with her father that she's always wanted. She may be an insane little girl, and she may hold her head up high when needed, but all she wants is a loving parent to hold her, just like any child does. I only hope she can look into her father's eyes, see that Kuma is really there, and tell him just how much she missed him. And with that, thanks for watching. Wow, this video turned into a bit of a beast. As always, I just had so much more to say than I previously thought, and Bonney just made me spew word vomit, but I just really like her. She's a crazy pink-haired little girl who's an Aussie, and how can I just not relate to that? And she also seems to like SANJI, and how can I just not relate to that? I know I didn't touch much on Kuma this video, but like I said, Kuma deserves his own video. It's very possible that will be my next video essay since Bonney is still fresh in my mind, and her big, beautiful papa deserves his own appreciation too. Anyways, what do you guys think? Do you like Bonney? Do you feel for Bonney? Did Bonney make you sob up a storm like I did? Please let me know because I love hearing it. Outside opinions will always help me and my critical thinking and will always give me new ideas. Before I forget, I would like to say thank you for 320k subs. I hit the number pretty recently and it just surprised me. A lot of people are into One Piece. Who knew? Just a quick reminder that I do have a Patreon, and if you would like to support me there, I'd really appreciate it. However, I know not everyone can support me in that way, and just watching and sharing this video does more than you can imagine for me. But tips also help me a lot. I will not lie. If you'd like to leave a tip, I would really appreciate that, and I would send love hearts to you and kisses to you and hug you and pat your head, I don't know. My Patreon also includes how to get into my Discord if you would like to join my little community. If there's anything you'd like to see me cover, One Piece or otherwise, please let me know. And I'll see you in whatever I make next. See ya!